Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, RTV.network.
Hello and welcome to the Connect Caribbean Report here on Callaloo Alliance Media. It's a great day and we're super excited. I'm Carolyn Howell, and today we're going to be looking at the theme Investing in Caribbean Infrastructure, the Opportunities and the Challenges. It's all coming up on the Connect Caribbean Report with my co-host, Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas, CEO and Chairman of Pleon Group, John Clendenning of the Inner Circle Group, IC Group, and our guest Simone Williams Arrington, who is a partner of Williams Global Law. Coming right up in the Connect Caribbean Report is Ambassador Thomas, CEO of the Pleon Group, parent company of Connect Caribbean Ferry Service, and we will also have additional information. This is all coming up right after these messages, so stay tuned.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Tariffs are not the only thing that's been impacting the U.S. economy. There are also the cuts to the federal workforce overseen by Elon Musk, the clampdown on immigration, and a potential drag on business investment with so much policy uncertainty. Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon says there's a very small chance the U.S. will dip into a recession. But Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News on Tuesday the administration is going to, quote, rebalance the economy. Among the cost-cutting steps the Trump administration is taking is now a push to sell a portfolio of 443 non-core federal properties across 47 states, D.C., and Puerto Rico. The properties represent almost 80 million rentable square feet of space. That's 12 times the size of the Pentagon. The list includes historic buildings, commercial offices, and other structures that house federal agencies. I'm Nancy.
Hello, this is Dr. Andre Thomas, and welcome to Connect Caribbean World. And I have with me a friend of mine, a business partner, and one that I have been working with for quite a while in this project of bringing economic development to the Caribbean, none other than Raphael DeAngelis, the founder and CEO of Upton Funds. Welcome to the show, Raphael.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. It's a pleasure being here.
Very good. Well, today we're going to talk to you today about investing in infrastructure in the Caribbean. What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? From your perspective, when you look at the region, you look at our need to upgrade our infrastructure. what do you see first are the opportunities, and what are the obstacles that have to be overcome for us to seize those opportunities? I mean, from your perspective.
I'm an eternal optimistic. I only see opportunity because the Caribbean region, this is the base. Anything from here can only get better. The whole movement now with the change of administration in the United States is that the Caribbean people needs to be looking more into their own economy and their own region. So I'm a very optimistic of what's going on because it's forcing us to take a really good look at it and say, what can we, the Caribbean, can do with each other? And that you've been spearheading this for so long with me as well, that we see incredible opportunities. And, with the creation of Connect Caribe under your leadership and the consortium in the Virgin Islands and the governor endorsement, we have a plan. We have a way that we know where the infrastructure needs to be developed. We need to allow Caribbean people to trade between themselves. And this new administration is actually making us, take a look at this, because we'll bring economic prosperity if we start trading with each other. And then actually, and the Virgin Islands is a big supporter of this, as you know. So what we need to do here is really to come together as a consortium and see where should we prioritize our flow? Where should we bring our product? How can we facilitate for the small businesses in the region to be able to ship product between one region to the other? Because, I've been all over the Caribbean, and one thing I know is that they are naturally entrepreneurs. They're dying to start small businesses. They're dying to be able to sell their product to other regions. They all wanted to find a way that they can ship their boxes, not for $100 a box, but for a rate that allows their business to prosper. So the investment priority in the region should be, into lowering the cost of cargo in between the islands, which, you have an incredible solution for that.
I totally agree with you, Raphael. I totally agree with you. Now, as we approach this, what do you think, from your perspective, would be the major building blocks? What are the elements that need to be in place for us to really achieve this? Now, I believe that as you mentioned, the new administration within Washington has created conditions that are now stimulating and in a way forcing groups of nations like the Caribbean to look inward and see what can we do within ourselves. Because the level of foreign aid that used to be forthcoming will not be coming at those levels, and with those conditions. And also, it's very clear that Europe's international development budget is going to reduce, because Europe is going to have to increase its GDP spend on defense. And you've already heard the UK state that it's going to reduce its international development budget because of increasing its spend on defense. So it's very clear, anyone that's observant would know that the international aid economy has significantly been reduced. And that's the trend. So with that in mind, so we know that. What in your mind are the core elements that need to be in the region for us to make this move quicker rather than later?
As you can see, the cutting of aid from the United States and the European Union, it can be something good for the Caribbean region.
Absolutely.
It can allow us to take responsibility for our own growth in our own hands, and actually to show us that we can do it. And I think the first thing that we must do, which I know that you already have started moving on that direction, it's analyzing what we have. What do we have today in the market? What connections that we have in between our islands, in the region? What boat routes currently exist that we can actually carry cargo and services? And next to this is to let people know, because most people in the Caribbean don't know that even exists the possibility of working with a company to ship the product from one island to another. They only know that it's prohibited expensive. What if we focus as a group, as a regional, to start sharing, look, we're going to start this route first, and this is the rate that we're going to offer for this route. I think we are very close to make those announcements, to actually being able to at least create one route that we can actually say, we're going to have a flat rate for this box of shipping cargo and goods and services. People need to know what we have. So people need to know, for example, that this country imports $5 million of carrots a year. This other country is imported $10 million of this kind of vegetable a year, because we have a $17 billion, maybe a little bit less, $15 billion food bill. Food is an opportunity. I have met business in your own island in Barbados that is creating a hydroponic farm for strawberries. What can we do as a community and as an island in our transportation infrastructure to help the strawberry farmers to sell their strawberry to another island? I think the base is there. I think what they need is support. Logistics support is the priority for investment in the region today. That we know. Every studies has shown that the priority number one in the region of the Caribbean, it's actually logistics support, because that will generate the revenue necessary for the governments to be able to actually offset this hard time that it's coming for the lack of funding.
Absolutely. And I believe a key element is also going to be being able to bring access to capital. I think the region has seen capital flow out of it. And I mean, in your thinking, what can we do, and what are the opportunities to bring capital into the region?
Capital comes with quality projects. The Caribbean has been known to have very low quality projects. So if you focus in food, it's a high quality project because there is demand. So if we created, but we don't have the logistics, so we need to bring the logistics. But if you focus in food, there is money to be invested in food, because one island can guarantee the revenue for the other.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, thank you.
So good. Thank you, Dr. Andre Thomas. Thank you, Rafael DeAngelis. That was really exciting. I love just that very simple statement that you made, that capital comes with quality projects.
Correct.
And the idea of looking at what would normally be viewed as a challenge and making this an amazing opportunity. So thank you for that discussion.
There is more money in the world today than there is projects, believe me. I work in the investment side, and there is a lot of money, but there is no quality project, because it's not that you want to just build a factory. You need to be a factory that you can sell. So if and in the Caribbean, we know the food is our biggest problem, is one of our biggest problems. So if we focus into creating infrastructure in food, the logistics that come in, there is money. It's easy to finance. Wow. It's easy to ask for loans because the banks will approve it. And there are some people in the Caribbean that knows this. They are moving in that direction.
I love that. The way you started is the way you ended. You said you are an optimist. I feel it. I see it. Thank you for this information. Coming up next, listeners and viewers, on the Connect Caribbean Report is John Clendenin. He will be connecting the dots for us. And gentlemen, Dr. Andre Thomas and Rafael, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With the Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm Tracy Jonke. The organization that promoted a national boycott of the big chain stores last week, calling it a day of economic resistance, allowed for shopping at one type of store, small and local. Some business owners threw their support behind the protest, and at least some say it made a difference in their business. KMGH-TV in Denver reported an increase in foot traffic at some small retailers during the 24-hour boycott. And the owner of a gourmet grocer in Baltimore says the protest has brought in more shoppers who want to support small businesses. In hopes of making shopping small a habit, she tells WBAL that the store is stocking produce, deli meats, and convenience items that people would normally buy at larger supermarkets. Others hoping for a lasting impact include a photographer who told the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that consumers need to support small business owners and not just for a few days. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Connecting the Dots. This afternoon, we'll be discussing investing in the Caribbean infrastructure, the opportunities and challenges. So the infrastructure needs in the Caribbean, as we look at connecting these dots, have to do with aging and inadequate systems. Many Caribbean nations face outdated and deteriorating infrastructure, particularly in transportation, energy, and digital connectivity. Hurricanes and other climate events exacerbate these vulnerabilities. The transportation networks that was mentioned earlier, and the need for these modernized ports and airports to boost tourism and trade. We need improved inter-island, island, and rural roadways to support commerce and local mobility. The expansion of the maritime shipping hubs to complete globally is part of our vision here at Connect Caribbean, and we have these hubs established in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and here in Port St. Croix. Energy efficiency is important. The high dependence on imported fossil fuels drives up costs. There's a critical need for renewable energy, solar, wind, geothermal, to improve the energy security of the region. Microgrids and resilient power systems can mitigate disruptions from natural disasters. Digital connectivity. Bridging the digital divide requires increasing broadband penetration and 5G infrastructure for the Internet of Things. Digital infrastructure via remote work, e-commerce, and global competitiveness. So the discussion that we'll have this afternoon is about how can small island nations balance the urgent infrastructure needs with limited fiscal capacity and environmental vulnerability? How can we get access to this abundance of capital that's necessary and that we have in the banks and bring them to our banking desert here to make an impact? With me this afternoon is my partner, Anthony Weeks, and I'll begin with Anthony. Your comments on the infrastructure connecting the dots.
Hey, John. Glad to be here with you, and it's always exciting to be able to have this discourse on exactly what the challenges and opportunities are. We might as well, when we say investment opportunities and challenges, we might as well apply the SWOT approach: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, right? For most organizations. The three fundamental, I believe, challenges and opportunity for the Caribbean in terms of investment is the perception of the Caribbean, more than just being a hospitality community, and realizing that we are a lot more than just tourism. The issue of inefficiency that exists in terms of lack of infrastructure and the need to invest in building out more infrastructure to support the entire ecosystem, and obviously the access to capital. For a lot of U.S. companies, when they look at market opportunities, particularly the large multinational U.S. Publicly traded company, for them, they look at market scalability. the critical mass of the market. How large is that market? And the challenge for the Caribbean, a lot of times, because the islands are so fragmented and separated, they see it more of a challenge, because for them, instead of dealing with one single entity, they're dealing with 40 different, market opportunities, and it requires a great deal of resources and duplication of those resources. And so the other important element is government policy that determines the kind of environment that is going to create for U.S. companies to want to invest in the Caribbean. And so I believe that the reset and how we reconnect and position the Caribbean region is to connect the Caribbean region not just amongst ourselves, where we start fundamentally, but how do we connect the rest of the Caribbean and all of its infrastructure and market opportunity so we can scale it with other larger markets.
Right.
Yep. Go ahead.
So in that, Anthony, in connecting the dots here, we're talking about the infrastructure now, and we're talking about supply chain logistics, as was talked about earlier with Raphael, unified telecommunications, systems interoperability, and financial technology. So as we deep dive, let me start with supply chain and logistics and how we strengthen the regional connectivity that we know is so vital. So we have fragmented supply chains. Many Caribbean nations rely on external imports for over 80% of their goods, leading to high transportation costs and supply chain inefficiencies. The limited interregional shipping routes hinder trade among Caribbean nations, and that's why we're forming this Connecting the Caribbean with ferry boat service for passengers and cargo. The infrastructure gaps that affect logistics are the aging ports, limited cargo handling capacity, which creates bottlenecks. We have a lack of cold storage facilities, which impacts our agricultural exports. We have inefficient multimodal transportation. So when we go sea, land, and air, which disrupts our seamless cargo movement. We have these opportunities for integration, and we can develop our region when we look at it as the whole diaspora. So the opportunities are developing regional logistics hubs that facilitate inter-island trade and reduce reliance on global shipping routes. We need to leverage public-private partnerships for port modernization and warehouse capacity. We did that on the 23rd of October with Governor Bryant here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We have to look at implementing blockchains for transparent, efficient border trade documentation. So the key question becomes, how can regional cooperation improve the supply chain resilience while reducing costs and transit times? And that will be an enabler to get the funding, as Raphael talked about. So the next is bridging the unified telecommunications. How do we bridge this, what we call the digital divide? The current state of telecommunications, we have disparate regulatory frameworks which prevent seamless connectivity across jurisdictions. Rural and undeveloped areas in the Caribbean lack broadband access, limiting education, telemedicine, e-commerce. The interoperability standardization is needed for unified telecom policies across these nations to promote cross-border service delivery. We need, I believe, to create a regional telecommunications consortium to standardize protocols for data sharing and roaming, incentivizing ICE 5G infrastructure in the islands to support smart city and IoT applications. Last year, and they're coming up with a year anniversary, we have a data center association in the Caribbean that we're starting to link the data center infrastructure. So we have strategic moves for advancement. The extending the private partnerships and collaboration, developing the fiber optic subsea cables, which is a strength that we have in the Virgin Islands, but we need to tap the other islands into that critical resource and promote the digital literacy programs. So there are many things that we can do to start improving, and one of the things is the cross-border collaboration that we've talked about, Nancy, that you mentioned. So our fragmented systems challenges our efficiency. We have incompatible customs systems, port management, payment systems, which delay the logistics and trade. The lack of shared digital infrastructure impedes the exchange of critical data between public and private sectors. And that's what we need to do to connect these dots. So there are pathways to interoperability. We need to have common digital standards within our trade documentation for customs clearance and logistics tracking. We need regional data sharing platforms for real-time monitoring of supply chains and infrastructure assets. And we need to strengthen our regulatory cooperation for cross-border tech in health, transportation, and security. So there are lots of things that we can do. And I see Carolyn is here. And we hope that this case for digital infrastructure impacts both the financial technology and the supply chain that's so critical. Carolyn?
Right. And so before Carolyn jumps in, specifically, you laid the background for what you believe are the required infrastructure opportunities. But more important are the markets. Without the markets, you can have all the infrastructure, but if you're not connected to the markets, it's important. So when we come back on the other side in Connected Voices, is how do we address what the Trump policy is trying to do is to really onshore all of the industry back to the U.S.
Right. So these connecting the dots are the dots to
our
the
job
market.
as both the U.S. and Caribbean is to be able to nearshore opportunities for major markets in the U.S. and market opportunities directly in the Caribbean and connecting that to the global marketplace.
Wow. This is good. This is good stuff. Everybody's going to want to stay tuned for your ending portion of Connected Voices. But thank you, John. Thank you, Anthony. This was a really good discussion on connecting the dots. And when we come back up, it will be time for the spotlight, and we will have attorney Simone Arrington-Williams.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. The number of people getting cold feet and canceling contracts to purchase homes jumped in Los Angeles in January. Redfin says cancellations amounted to nearly 16% of those who pledged to buy a home in the month, the highest share for January in 8 years, and up from just about 13% a year ago after deadly wildfires. And the share of those canceling also rose in San Diego. Meantime, cancellation rates are still even higher in other metros like Houston, Atlanta, and Detroit, where they jump pretty sharply, and also Florida metros, including Orlando and Jacksonville. On the other hand, cancellation rates among major metros are the lowest in the Bay Area. In San Francisco, for example, only about 4% of the number of deals signed in January got canceled. San Jose and Oakland, other markets where it's tilting toward being more of a seller's market again. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
TravelShare. It Marketplace is an innovative, dynamic, user-friendly, and fully comprehensive global travel marketplace, featuring all Caribbean islands as a premier destinations. TravelShare. It Marketplace featured daily travel news, arts, culture, events, travel weather news, individuals' remote work, flex time, paid time off, family leisure time, and travel deals to better connect the U.S., Caribbean, and the Americas worldwide. So no matter where you want to travel in the world for work or leisure, working remotely or on vacation by yourself, with friends or family, whether by air or sea, TravelShare. It Marketplace makes it easy to get you to your destination. Book now at www.travelshareit.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited to have this discussion today. We have back with us Simone Williams Arrington. She is the founder and managing partner for the Williams Global Business and Immigration Law Firm. based here in Washington, D.C. Last month, we had her on as our expert regarding immigration matters, and we thought that in the months to come, we'd bring her back again. But with some breaking news that has come down in the last week, we brought her back to discuss the EB-5 investment program and Gold Card here. So, Simone, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back again, Carolyn.
Well, I'm really excited, and I love the fact, and thank you for sending this amazing newsletter that everybody can get a copy of. The newsletter that you sent that mentioned he announces the Gold Card to replace EB-5 program. So regarding our topic today is investing in the infrastructure in the Caribbean. If you're interested in being an investor, this is going to speak directly to you as you do business in the United States Virgin Islands, which is sitting in the Caribbean, but is deeply the United States of America. So the impact is felt in the Caribbean. So Simone, I have a question. First of all, what is the Gold Card?
All right. So the Gold Card was recently announced by President Trump. He says it's a Gold Card visa. It offers investors the ability to invest $5 million to have a permanent residency in the U.S., so a green card. As far as the technicalities and the specifics of it, it's kind of a little bit unsure. He announced it. He said that it would obviously bring and boost the economy, $5 million. He said it's a visa that gives the investor the permanent residency, but as far as the other requirements is a little bit unsure. I think that it bears that he said it would replace the EB-5 program. Now that's a good question. What is that?
Yes.
So that is an option, an immigration visa option for investors that are looking to invest between about $800,000 to $1 million in projects that are creating jobs in the United States. So it has a job creation component. It helps to bring jobs to American workers because that's the requirement. And the Gold Card visa, there is no job creation requirement. So we're not even sure about, whether jobs have to be created. But with the EB-5 program, jobs do have to be created. So that's one distinct difference. Obviously, the amounts are vastly different.
They are
about 1 million to up to $5 million. So, you're shutting out a lot of smaller investors that would normally utilize the EB-5 program to either create their own projects, invest in existing projects in the U.S., which is what's called the Regional Center Program, if that makes sense.
And it does. And Simone, thank you for kind of helping that out. So I guess a natural question for me, since the amounts for, the barrier to entry is vastly different, and we know that investors can pay $5 million and be in, but is it possible that the EB-5 program and the Gold Card could exist in the same world?
Yes, so that's exactly right. So he said initially that it is intended to replace the program. So the thing about it is, as we know, there's a statute that was passed by Congress. There's a legislative process that's involved. So it's not so simply that he could terminate the program through an executive order. It's just not possible. It has to go through Congress. It has to be approved. And so in terms of the fact that he did say that initially that it would replace the EB-5, but they both could exist in the same space. It's possible that there will be a lot of pushback, both from Democratic and Republican senators, because right now the EB-5 program because it is a job creation program, it's meant to create jobs for American-born workers. A lot of states benefit from, and even the Virgin Islands at one point had a regional center. So a lot of states benefit from having the EB-5 regional center because it brings investment, low-cost investment to the state, which creates jobs, which is a requirement for the program. So I'm not too, because of the value of the EB-5 program, I think that they both can exist in the same space.
Wow, but I'm certain you have been really just bowled over with the speaking engagements and just really people calling. What would you recommend that prospective investors do, particularly those who want to invest in the Caribbean? They've got their eyes on the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is going to be a hub there. What would you suggest they do at this point?
So there's obviously a lot of uncertainty, right? The way that the EB5, so let me explain, there's a little bit of a nuance with EB5.
Okay.
There's two ways to look at it. The EB5 program is it could be divided in two types of ways that you could invest. One is through a direct investment, and one is through something called the Regional Center Program. The Regional Center Program is there has to be like an entity that's authorized by the immigration agency to oversee projects. Okay, that's that's something that is already authorized by. It's called a regional center that authorizes sponsored projects in the region. The direct investment is when an investor just wants to invest in their own business. $800 to $1 million. Why I'm bringing up those two distinctive differences is that the program that when President Trump announced to replace was only the Regional Center Program. So it was not the direct investment program. There's a very much of a difference because the direct investment is in the statute and requires congressional approval and all of that to change something that's embedded in the statute and the legislative laws for immigration. So that can't just be easily changed. The Regional Center Program is something that has to be approved and authorized every 5 years. And so that's something that can possibly be replaced or not renewed. So when people are afraid, it's like, are you investing in the Regional Center program? Or are you investing in your own business? So I want to be able to assure people of that it does involve, if you're going to be concerned, it's if you're investing in something called the Regional Center Program, which is normally a passive investment for investors. Most investors have the funds and they don't want to have to worry about it. The direct investment is an active investment. You have to, hire employees, 10 workers, you have to manage, you have to show, and it's very, everybody knows it's difficult to run a business, right? To come in from a foreign country and run a US business successfully could be a challenge. So that's why people tend to like the passive program, if that makes any sense. I hope I'm not losing you there.
No, you're not. And you're really making it very clear. As a matter of fact, it is this kind of discussion that's so helpful because as we're looking at individuals that are trying to figure out what to do, you really have been a subject matter expert on immigration and on the investment related portion of immigration through the EB program. EB5 program. So if people have questions, they've listened to the show today, they're interested in investing in the infrastructure, perhaps even in someplace, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, as well as the rest of the Caribbean, how do they get more information from you?
All right. So you could always go to my website, williamsgloballaw.com. And that's 2 L's, Global Law. And there's a contact page that you could hit contact and somebody will get in touch with you. I also want to, I know you asked earlier about what should prospective investors do. I just want to end to say, there's a lot of uncertainty with immigration right now, right? We have an EB5 program that's available. And we know for certain what the investment amount is. I was telling you the difference between the direct and the regional center. Lots of clients have been asking, well, is that going to go away if I invest? What's going to happen? Normally, once you invest, the provisions have a grandfathering provision. Okay. So you're grandfathered in. So you could literally, as long as you meet it before you invest before the enactment date, you are fine. You won't be affected if anything changes. Secondly, if you're investing as a direct investor, as I said, even though it's embedded in the statute and it's not changing, they can always change the investment amount. So what I'm saying to investors, if you are interested, it's not going away. It's not being replaced, but they can change the investment amount, right? So what I'm saying to investors and prospective people and individuals that are interested in investing in the U.S., and we welcome it. The U.S. is still open for business, of course, to if they want to take advantage of the lower investment amount and to be sure that it will remain, $800 to $1 million. That's what I would say is go ahead and make the plans to do so before any changes happen.
Well, I'm going to recommend that anybody talk to you first, that they go directly there, sign up for your newsletter, get this
Yes, I know.
information, and plan on a consultation
Yes.
at Williams Global Law. I'm really excited to have you back here. Thanks for kind of putting these points out here. There's been a lot of uncertainty. We want to invest. There are investors that are ready to do things in the Caribbean, and so we want to make sure that they have the information. Thank you, Simone, so much.
Thank you for having me again.
This was great, and I'm
right.
sure this discussion will continue. This will not be your last visit here.
Yes, anytime you need, things are always changing, very fluid right now, and I'm here as a resource and happy to help. And thank you for having me. All right.
Thank you so much. When we come back, it's going to be time for Connecting the Dots.
Reimagine a world where the Caribbean is seamlessly connected, where our people, our cultures, and our economies move freely across the islands. This is Connect Caribbean, more than a ferry service. It's the heartbeat of a new era, an era where economic opportunities expand, where trade flows freely across our seas, and cultural exchange flourishes. We are linking businesses, empowering communities, and reigniting the hope for a truly integrated Caribbean. Together, we're shaping a brighter, more unified future for the Caribbean. Connect Caribbean, connecting our islands, our people, our future.
Yay, we're all back. And let me just say at the outset, thank you all for being here. This is Connected Voices. This show is all about connections anyway, between connecting the dots, connecting voices, Connect Caribbean. Please excuse the faux pas. This is Connected Voices.
Thank you.
Let's hear those voices.
So if I may, Caroline, I just want to complete my thought from the last segment.
Okay,
When I
so
spoke of,
started out. Okay, there we go. Started out.
the point I was trying to make is, while the infrastructure requirement is paramount, you're building the infrastructure to support a particular market demand and market needs by connecting the supply chain. Earlier, we heard from Simone and talking about the EB5 and the Gold Card program. The idea is, how do we position the EB5 program for foreign direct investment, which is a U.S. Program, to then benefit the rest of the Caribbean? If we are able to create joint ventures, collaboration, consortium that speaks to how do we connect the Caribbean to wider markets, more access to the U.S. market. Most governors of states in the United States, they go on the road, they sell their states and their economy. Why? Because they want their corporate citizens to have opportunities in foreign markets. And so what we will do, as we talk about the role of the U.S. Virgin Islands being both Caribbean but being the U.S., is to nearshore the U.S. market, because most of those investors, they want access to the largest economy in the world, the more powerful economy in the world, and that's what they're seeking. And if we work collectively with other states who see the value for working with the U.S. Virgin Islands as a U.S. jurisdiction to bring their actors and partners to the Caribbean, closer to the Caribbean, and then bring our partners in the Caribbean closer to the U.S., that is your primary objective, to facilitate this environment.
Right. Carolyn, if I can make this segue between what Anthony just said. So he's talking about the what, okay, the market and what the need is. But I want to segue from how do we connect the dots to get to what Raphael talked about. We need projects that are fundable, that are worthy projects that can pass the scrutiny. So in the connecting of the infrastructure, that's the subject of this show, we need to have this upgrading of transportation networks, the energy efficiency, digital connectivity. We have to explore what these opportunities are for investment and the private partnerships and the bonds, crowdfunding, however it happens. But the challenges are analyzing the Caribbean infrastructure, the regulatory hurdles, the limited funding that's available now, and the environmental concerns. So I believe that it's the how, that if we can come up with the planning that puts in place these supply chain logistics, unified telecommunications, the systems interoperability, and the taking advantage of the new financial technologies with digital currencies, open banking, cross-border innovation, I believe that's what's going to enable us to get the funding that Raphael talks about, so we can serve the market space that Anthony so worthily described. So that's my voice.
And that is a good point. And Raphael, you really said it so eloquently, that there's no shortage of money. There's really no shortage of investors. But if the projects are not interesting, exciting, and if they're not high quality, they will look elsewhere.
Also, you need to understand that international investor, which is where the capital comes from, they're looking for return in US dollars or hard currency. They're not interested in becoming rich with a local currency that cannot convert. So it's time for us to look at it. You know, Guyana is having no shortage of investment. You know, the opposite, because it's petroleum, it's dollar, it's coming into the economy. So the question here is, what is it that the Caribbean is importing, paying their hard-earned dollars back? It's food. The Caribbean spending billions of dollars in food. So if a program is created that shows that billions of dollars in food can be paid to a corporation that can locally produce, that can, or even a US company like a Trade Hub that can do this exchange, then what you're going to happen is everything has to go together. You have the Food Stability Program initiative and you have the Transportation Initiative, because the two of them has to exist together. You see, there is no other market in the Caribbean today, you know, in the islands, that is more exciting than food. That is the only one, because it's the only one that has true demand. Nothing else has true demand. Yeah, tourism, you already have it. You're already maxed out on tourism investment. But food is the only untapped territory that billions of dollars is flying out of the islands that can stay.
Wow.
So
wow, Doctor, that's excellent points. I was going to get Dr. Thomas to weigh in on that, because he seems like he is chomping at the bit in response to that.
I am thinking of implementation. I am thinking that what we want to do is that by the end of this year, our aim is to have some tangible projects that actually demonstrate what we're talking about. I know the volume of the market is so significant that you don't even need a proof of concept. You just need to start. And what you need, you need the first dominoes. So I call it not proof of concept, the first domino that will create the domino effect. So we are working to really bring together the Maritime Logistics Program and the Food Stability Program together. And those two projects make total sense for the region. And it makes sense to anchor that within the USVI as well, and to utilize the actual USVI as a platform for this. Yeah.
You know, I just want to say that, you know, the United States is one of the biggest agri countries in the world. So there is no way we can develop the agriculture industry in the Caribbean without the technology and the transfer know-how coming from the United States.
That's
and
right.
The Virgin Island is the hub. So it is the industry that, economically speaking, there is a case. Numbers is there. You don't have to try to connect the dot. The dot already exists. What it doesn't have, it's organization in how the fund is allocation or program that they come in and just fit in. Because it has to have, you know, you have the financing side, you have the transportation side, but we know the industry we have to focus in the region to start. This food, we need to lower the cost of food for every Caribbean family, you know, and that's real impact. every person in the Caribbean that I speak, they understand that language. Cheaper
Let me
food.
let me give you this example, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Happy International Women's Month. For all our colleagues that are doing dynamic women, powerful women, Happy International Women's Month. Saying that, we just recently solidified a team member, the president of Smith Ferry Service here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Prior to the devastation of Hurricane Irma and Maria, Smith Ferry Service had 6 vessels that literally transported people, goods between the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands. Now, when you think of the nearest, if you will, other islands to the Virgin Islands, both U.S. and British Virgin Islands, is St. Martin and Anguilla. And according to Smith, she said the total nautical mile is 102 nautical miles, very close by. Now, within the Virgin Islands, both U.S. and British Virgin Islands ferry ecosystem, there are 10 service providers, both on the U.S. side and the British Virgin Islands side. When we announced that she would be the point lead person, the liaison to work with Connect Carib for the build out of this new ferry network system to service the region, the response has been phenomenal. This is a person who literally has the confidence in the public community in terms of transporting the public and the legacy of inheriting her father's business. But when you talk about infrastructure and transportation, how critical it is, and the whole vision of Connect Carib, connecting all of the islands and having the ability to say to other ferry service throughout the region, you need to be part of this consortium, because what we're doing is basically we're integrating a system that includes everybody sitting at the table and doing their part in the process.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yep. No, I believe that she's been a game changer. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right. But let me go back for a minute to the notion of connecting the dots, because what Raphael needs is a yesable proposition. So yes, we have fareboat services, but we have to have the ability of a plan that talks about the network. We have to put that in place. We have to have cold storage. We have to take these agricultural supply chains and vertically integrate so that we can do manufacturing. We can take things that are in season like mangoes and then make mango chutney and jellies and things in an infrastructure that we have in the Virgin Islands in our manufacturing. So we need to be able to integrate this agricultural supply chain to make a yesable proposition. I think we're going there. And as soon as we figure out the planning process, I think we can invest the capital to do these things to drive sustainable economic development.
Wow.
The name of the game is collaboration, cooperation. That's fundamentally is what's going to drive this. Remember I said earlier, the 3 buckets is how do we change the perception of the opportunity for investment in the Caribbean. Changing the paradigm of just thinking we're just tourism is what we have to overcome, because that's how the rest of the world see us, as a tourism destination, and we're so much more. But the second problem is the inefficiency of the ecosystem and the fragmentation of the system. And so how do we do that? We then look at capital to bridge that ecosystem through the supply chain that says the opportunity that exists into nearshoring and onshoring is how we bring the region together collectively through partnership, through joint venture, through being part of consortium. The response to the entire Virgin Islands ferry community has been incredible because it makes sense. You're inviting everybody to be part of the process. You're not leaving anyone out, and you're defining a role for them, and everybody's saying, I'm all in.
Right. And when we talk about the infrastructure, so that's the what. But I want to go back to something Raphael said. The United States, as an agriculturally centered country, okay, the food in the Caribbean needs to be able to transport that food in an economical way and distribute it in the islands. We need to embrace the fact that we have unique foods that people of Caribbean background in the United States want to have access to that food. We want to have inter-island, intramural access to that food. So putting together the infrastructure that both is able to distribute the food from the United States as our trading hub through the Virgin Islands and facilitating these trading hubs and getting the food the opposite direction there is a two-sided supply chain. We need to put together this infrastructure and to enable the competitiveness to get the money that's available. But it's disaggregated right now. And so that's why I'm the advocate for connecting the dots, because when we put that infrastructure together, when we have the private partnerships and public, and we change the regulations, and we have these international agreements that Ambassador Thomas is working on, that's when we're going to be able to get the money and put this thing in place. I think all of those things that we are talking about are possible. And that's where the excitement is for me, is that we can do this. What we do is important, and what we do will make a difference.
All right, that's a great wrap-up comment from you, John. I'd like to hear from Dr. Thomas, your thoughts as we wrap up. We've got about 90 seconds left.
The last block is being worked on right now, which is bringing access to capital. I believe we have enough to start, and this last block will be laid down very soon, and we'll be ready to start. I believe we have a great plan, and we have a great team, and I believe it's time to execute.
Love it. Short and sweet. You, Raphael, please.
You know, just to remind everyone that the United States, the U.S. farming business, I was in Brazil recently. They're one of the biggest investors in farm in Brazil. There is sections of Brazil that is full of Americans. They own the farm, they grow farm in Brazil, they bring all their know-how in it. What if we create a package that we show them that they can also do farming, different kind of farming, hydroponic or high aggregate value in the Caribbean region? What if there is a support to bring those US business the way the Brazilians have? And it's not small amount of money, it's billions of dollars of exchange between the agribusiness in the center of the United States and the agribusiness in the center of Brazil. The United States, the Americans are one of the biggest investors in farming in Brazil today because they know how to grow soy, they know how to grow food. Maybe we can create a package that U.S. business can come to the Caribbean, because definitely there is demand in the billions of dollars.
Love your thinking. Great thought. It sounds like the topic for another show. And Anthony, the last word.
I think we're on the right track, like my colleagues, John, Raphael, and Ambassador Thomas said. But I think that they need to be a collective message, right? That everybody gets, right? And it speaks to the collective unified voice and effort to achieve that. And creating a singular, which includes both US and the Caribbean region, called the Caribbean America Single Economy Zone, is that reinforcement of branding. Speaking at how Connect Carib is that force for building out this important network and infrastructure is what we are achieving. This is what we're doing right now. And I think people are understanding that. They see the vision and they understand that message.
Well, thank you all so much. This has been fantastic. It is great to have you all here. This Connect Caribbean report is excellent. Looking forward to seeing you all next time. Keep those thoughts going, and we will keep the conversation and the connection going. See you all next time. Thank you for viewing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel, our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, RTV.network.